And driving down the main street of El Dorado, Kansas, I wanted you to see a building where along the bottoms, they make them look like stones, but you can see here where one is fallen away, and you can see what the actual building is constructed from. It's a red brick, this color. And so all these stones have been put on the front as a facade to make it look different, maybe updated. The same with these, or at least they've been painted. But the original building is right there to see, right underneath. And once again, it is red brick. So whenever you see these buildings that have been done with what looks like large blocks, but concrete type looking blocks, they're really just facades that are put on the front. We've talked in other videos, there's a purpose for the red brick. The iron in it will hold a charge. And this building is actually the Masonic Lodge building. And you can see the dates that are up there are AL dates, Ana Lucis dates. Which if you look that up, that means year of light. And that's something that's part of the ritual, the Masonic ritual. But that building's been completely refurbished at some point and now completely been dilapidated. That would take a long time to refurbish and put this on the outside, and it'd take a long time just for it to get in the state it's gotten in. Now I'm further down the street, and as we come around to the alley at the back, you can see what the building actually was constructed like. The windows are boarded up now. And you notice these windows at a higher level that have been bricked in. Well, it's very possible that as the mudflood land was raised, came in and made it higher under that scenario, that the floors were actually about this level. It's one possibility, in that they had to be lowered. And so when they were lowered to the lower level, it made really low ceiling basements. Many of these basements will have poles supporting the floors, but there's never any poles on the first floor. Well, on the current first floor. Usually there's hardly ever anything supporting the floor above that on these floors, but in the basements there are, which brings a major question. Why? Well, if they had to lower these floors to refurbish these buildings after the floors were covered, the lower floors were covered, that would be a reason. They would have had to cut the beams off the edge of the building on the inside and lower them, and need to fortify them with poles. Now look at this brick up here. Look at the age on that. That is some of the most beat up brick I've ever seen on a building. It has other colors put in there. It's just a mess. And as I've said in other videos, houses that were built in the 50s, of which are plenty all through neighborhoods, you can see them everywhere, their brick doesn't look old at all. And that's 70 years ago. 70 years before that, this would have been brand new according to when they say they were built. And this is pretty incredible. And as we walk back toward the front of the building, you can see many of these facade, essentially bricks, are popping off the building. That's why I love to come into these size of towns, because sometimes they don't have the money inflow to some of these businesses. And really, you'll find things that are decaying, and when that happens, you can see evidence of things that aren't talked about and aren't in the current narrative, but are right there in plain sight. And as we well know, these sidewalks are vaulted sidewalks that are over a cement box that's probably 12 feet deep. And it's great to see these things firsthand on these old buildings. A little further down the road at El Dorado, we come across one of these buildings, who most people have seen before. You'll see it's built with marble down below, and it's become a museum now, but it looks like a cement just fortification of a building. But on this building you can clearly see that it's all a facade, and this is a complete building is a brick building in actuality. It's been painted, and you can bet that that's red brick. So at some point, these red brick buildings were all refurbished and had a remodel job and made to look entirely different, like many of the important buildings that we've seen. But and most of the places, they are they're done like that all the way around with concrete, so you can't tell. But on this building, as the paint flakes off up above, you can clearly see this is a large red brick building that's had one front put on it rather than the entire building. And that makes you question every building you ever see that's done like that front face. Is that just there to hide the red brick underneath? Which you can bet. There it is right there. And here we are back out front from this building, but right across from that building is another group of buildings that's being remodeled. And the interesting thing on these buildings, when you look at these, is that the floors are right at the sidewalk level, but I suspect that those floors have been lowered during the refurbishing and were originally higher by about 3 to 4 feet and had to be lowered. And I'm going to show you why that is, in addition to these sidewalks being put here to cover up the lower levels. When we come around to the side of this building, you can see that this is just an ancient wall. This isn't red brick in the middle of this. This is stone. At least I don't see any red from here. And then these windows are lined with concrete. It's extremely old. And the same with the lower level, it's been painted. But when we look down the side along the bottom, and this is fenced off, so I can't get really any closer than this. We see bricked up windows. What were the windows from the lower level? There, there, and then further back, right there. And so the original floors would have come well above those windows, probably at least to the height of that darkening where the floor would have been. And you can kind of see the evidence of that down where the doorway has been filled in with a brick right there. And that's probably even lower than it was before. But the windows from the part below sticking out of the top are not going to have the floor right in the middle of the window. And so when we get around to this side, this floor is now at the lower part. The poles have all been put in after the fact, and steel I-beams and things like that, but the old construction, it just was probably easier to lower the floor than tear the building down in the event, in case of having land cover up the lower levels. But this wall is just about as old as you'll see on a large basis. So that was probably there, part of a building, and then a red brick was built on top of it or around it. That's on Main Street in El Dorado, Kansas. And now about a block further down the street from the building we just looked at is another building here on the corner, made out of limestone. And right here we can see the sidewalks were not made all the way up to the building right here. It was kept cut away from, and you can see what was down below. And it's a door that almost is too wide to even open all the way. Probably just about hits the other side. You're not going to get anything in and out of that building through that door. Additionally, it has the same pipes that are always put at this era all over. And if you just notice these, you'll see these in other videos in other places. It was like they was sent all over the country to refurbish these buildings, and these pipes are always this same type of piping. And so just keep your eyes open as time goes on. I'll show you some more of them. But it's another good look at these buildings of what's down below and what is under these sidewalks all along the entire street, going that way and all the way down. Hit like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.